Pardon me. Sorry, I got a drinking coffee, got a tick in my throat. So this morning I woke up to a customer who was a little disappointed in breakaway hockey. I think he thought the rules were a little vague, and I can understand that. So I forwarded that email on to Dell, who's the author and designer, who's written the game, and he's aware of that. But his other big concern was no charts, which I'll talk about in this video, and third, no score sheet, which really does help with games, especially when they're abstract, and Dell's games are super abstract. So what I did for him immediately was I created a sample score sheet for breakaway hockey, which is not official. This is not Dell's score sheet. I literally made this for him right after I got the email. Forwarded the concerns to Dell, so Dell will have a chance to read those and talk to him directly. But more importantly, I thought, you know what? I'll go ahead and type up a sample kind of idea, score sheet of how the game really would look. Because part of the problem with abstract games is you read the rules, you're reading these abstractions, but you then have to somehow figure out what that looks like when you track the game. And so this is fundamental. Either a game example should be in the book, or there should be a score sheet that kind of walks people through it. So these are things Dell is learning. Again, remember, Dell. This is the first time Dell's actually had to, has written his own rules and published them. So please be patient with Dell, as he's kind of the science guy. He's kind of the math guy. Again, the writing of the rules is in a way new to Dell, and Dell has a full-time job. So be patient with him, and if you have any questions, you can certainly ask Dell, and you can try to ask me, and I'll try to answer them best I can. So never fear. We are here to hopefully help you enjoy Dell's sports games. So what I want to first talk about are charts. Dell's games don't use charts. They don't use they're not traditional replay sports games. They are sports games. They are abstractions of the sport. You still have golfers rated. You still have teams rated. But his games are dice-only games. You literally grab the offensive dice, the defensive dice, you roll those dice, and the sum or the difference or whatever that his rules demand of those dice will tell you what the immediate result is. Either you're moving the ball, or you're shooting a goal, or whatever. So, or in tennis, you're either volleying the ball back, or etc. So, recognize first and foremost they are not traditional sports replay games, right? There are no individual players. I mean, golf has individual players, tennis has individual players, wrestling has individual wrestlers. But something like hockey and football, they're team games, so they'll have a rating for the offense or the defense, etc. So for those of you, again, who expected traditional charts, even Dell's football game had 0 charts. I put charts in the debut book because that's what I was using originally, and I thought I would put them in there to help people transition to how do these results abstractly fare, right? How do they look? And so that was in the book because I needed it, and I thought if I needed it, other people might need it. But in reality, I no longer use those charts at all when I play full-on football. Which, if you've seen that last video game of my Super Bowl III replay on the channel of Full-On Football, you'll see I literally do not use charts at all. I use this game as written, as designed. And I think Dell, to be honest, I did that without Dell's permission. I think adding those charts to the book, I think bothered Dell a little bit. I think Dell had no intention of Full-On Football providing this kind of crutch. Dell does not like crutches, right? He likes people to use the mechanism and use their imagination. And I love this about Dell, but not everybody is like Dell. So anyway, point is, even Full-On Football, I do not use charts at all anymore. There's no need, right? I can imagine what the results look like. So, but again, that's not necessarily normal for all of us sports guys. We get a game and we're accustomed to traditional games where there are charts and there are traditional results, and there might be players toting the rock or whatever. So again, hopefully this helps. But anyway, so I made this quick score sheet in PDF. I will put it on my Google Drive. This is not the official score sheet. Dell told me this morning that he would attempt to get official score sheets made for all of his games. So, but for now, at least this would help people understand kind of how to jot this in your notebook paper. All right. So first off, I just made a simple score sheet in which you would just jot down what happened in the 20th minute. And his game is every period is 4 segments, and you roll once per segment. So imagine this is 5-minute intervals, or like the 20-minute mark to 50. But again, they don't have to be literally the 20-minute mark. But he's breaking the period into 5-minute segments is what he's doing. So I just write down here the first roll, second roll, third roll, fourth roll. Well, you could do this segment 1, segment 2, segment 3. So he calls them segments. So you could call this segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, segment 4. Then you could actually roll in that segment to see how much time was actually on the clock. You could devise your own abstraction as to, was it at the 19th minute, etc., etc. So, but I just did this for the sole purpose of kind of teaching how you score the game. So the first team, let's say it's Toronto, and again in his book they tell you every team starts with the exact same offense, exact same defense. So when you start your league, teams will start to see these dice change as the results play out, which is very cool. You're going to see the ebb. Everybody starts even, but then as the games wear on, some teams are going to rise to the top, some teams are going to ebb to the bottom. It's very cool, right? Or at least, but it's different. Again, if you're looking for Toronto rated and Boston rated, as you play through your games or your seasons, you're going to see Toronto and Boston take shape. Okay, so at least everybody starts on even footing, which is, I think, a kind of cool idea. All right, so anyway, so I got the first period, second period, third period, and I put overtime here, simple lines, because I didn't want this base score sheet to be on three pages. But then I also did an example for him, and again, I literally made this for the gentleman who had some concerns. This morning. So again, I already sent it to him, and I've hopefully this will help him. So again, Toronto, their offense dice D10, their goalie dice D6, and Boston is D10, D6. First period, at the 20-minute mark, there was no penalty in the action. A D10, so Toronto's D10 roll was a 3, Boston's D10 roll was a 4. That means Toronto earns a shot. They roll again, the D10. He rolls a 1 versus the goalie. He gets to roll, Boston's goalie gets to roll their D6. It's a 3. That means Toronto has scored a goal. So at roughly the first 5 minutes of action, Toronto has scored a goal, beating Boston on offense and then beating the goalie. It's 1-0 Toronto. Roughly the 15-minute mark, again, no penalty in the action. Toronto's D10 rolls a 7. Boston's D10 rolls a 6. Boston earns a shot on goal because they're lower than Toronto. Boston shoots, D10 is 9. That's going to be a complete miss because the goalie, he cannot roll. 9 is never going to be below the goalie. The goalie rolls a D6. So that tells me it's a missed shot. I mean, it wasn't even a shot on goal. This was a shot that went wide, maybe bounced off the backboard or, into the crowd or whatever. But it's a missed shot. The goalie's roll was still a 6. So had he rolled low, he would have scored. That would have been the worst possible roll for the goalie. However, as it is, the Boston shot is wide, and the goalie gets lucky as he was out of position. So I just write a little description. The goalie 6, he was out of position, but fortunately the Boston shot went wide. Roughly the 10-minute mark, Boston D10 is a 6 penalty. It's a penalty because the penalty die. So you roll a third die. So when you roll your matchups, you always roll a D6 die, and if it matches either team's number, it's a penalty. So Boston, unfortunately, rolls a 6, and the penalty die comes up a 6. That means Boston is a penalty, which means, and then that 6 tells us on who. It's on the goalie. So the goalie must have knocked the goal off the pins, or the goalie must have, tripped somebody up. I don't know. I don't know all the possible penalties that a goalie could incur, but it's on the goalie. So Toronto gets a power play, which I've misspelled there. That's wonderful. They roll their D10 3 versus the goalie D6. So what happens when you get a penalty? That means Toronto gets an automatic shot, right? So the shot, they don't get to roll for a shot. They get an automatic shot. They roll a 3. The goalie rolls a 4. Toronto scores a power play goal. It is now 2-0 at the 10-minute mark of the first period. Toronto right now exercising dominance over Boston. Around the 5th-minute mark, there's no penalty. Boston rolls a 4. Toronto rolls an 8. That means Boston's offense gets a shot on goal. We roll a D10, 5. Their goalie rolls a 1. It's a stop. Saved by Toronto to end the first period. And after 1, Toronto is up 2-0. And that's how breakaway hockey works. So, this has been a quick tutorial video. And again, I will put this PDF into my Google Drive for those who want a sample. score sheet. Again, Dell and I don't use score sheets for his games. You just grab a piece of notebook paper and you write down whether it's a touchdown or right. So you would roll the dice, and if it isn't a score, you wouldn't even have to note it. You would just note that, okay, that's one segment gone. Roll the dice. Oh, we're gonna have a penalty. I might write that down in the shot result. I like to note the entire game. That's just the way I am. So even in my football possessions, I write down the result of the possession, no matter what it is, if it's a punt or whatever. So I like to note what happened during so I can look back and say, oh, it's literally a narrative of the first period. So I like to do this. But Dell, he's the kind of guy that would make the roll and then make the shot roll. And if it's a score, he would just note that Boston scored on the first segment 1-0. That's Dell is more or less looking for the points, right? I'm looking to be able to look back and see kind of the highlights, right? So that's how this particular game works. Golf, on the other hand, you got to score because you're rolling for every golfer, for every hole, for every course, right? Football, you really only have to note how many turns have gone and if there was a field goal or a touchdown or a defensive score. You don't have to note anything else. I note whether it's a punt or an interception or whatever because I love to look back. And because of that, see, one of the reasons Dell didn't concern himself with the chart results for football is Dell rolls the dice and says, oh, it's a score for the offense. Oh, it's a defensive score for the defense. And all he has to note is that was a turn gone, and they scored 7 on defense or whatever. So again, Dell's only tracking the score. He's not tracking so much the ebb and flow of the game, right? If that makes sense. So, and again, I think he's going to have to make one for tennis. By the way, he has posted tennis. For those who are interested in his tennis game, it is up. Again, I haven't had a chance to look at the final book, but Dell this morning sent me the link to the Lulu page. His tennis game is also up and finished. Again, you can expect Dell again to write very, just basically very much how the game works, right? So, but he is going to eventually. He said he was going to do some tutorial videos, and he will provide score sheets, I think, for the games. So anyway, this is just kind of to get out and let people know. Oh, if one customer's a little concerned or a little confused or a little disappointed, then there's a chance there may be others. And so we just want people to know that, if one customer says, hey, this boot is tight on my foot, I say, okay, let's try to get you better boots. But then I want to note that why does this boot, and it may just be that customer's left foot, right? Or you know what I mean? But the reality is sometimes there's something wrong with the boot. So you want to be aware of that. So I'm the kind of guy that when I make a game, if I'm confused by something or I'm a little disappointed in something, then I know that, of course, the people who didn't invent it or the people who did not partake in its design will also, they'll certainly be confused or they'll be tripped up. So again, just be patient. Again, as Dell, this is literally Dell's, golf was Dell's very first independent offering, and so it was the first thing he's had to write and publish. So just bear with him as he gets this thing down, folks. So all right, anyway, I have hopefully helped the customer with an email and this PDF, and hopefully this video will help him as well. And I will send an email link to this video for him, so he has a chance. We can help if people don't like a game. I mean, we're not gonna make the game something else. It is what it is, and if people don't like it, well, that's another deal. We're not gonna reinvent the game to make every customer happy. You make the game, and you say this is what it is. Take it or leave it. Hopefully you like it, or hopefully it's a novelty. It's a tailgate game or something, or it's a great party game, or something simple you can take with you on the road, or it's something more. But the game, understand this: we won't be changing the rules to the game. We won't be adding things to the game to make one customer contented. That's what we will never do. Customers are free to add and edit and add to the games or add details to the games. That's some of the joys of getting a simple game, is you get to add, who's scoring these goals? How are you getting assists for your team? Once you've played a few games, you'll start really hey, I can use that D10 to say, oh, that was my left winger that got that shot. So we're not going to do that because you can't make you can't. Number one is it's like a songwriter. Bob Dylan's going to write a song, and then 1 million people are going to hear it. 500,000 may like it. 250,000 may hate it, and another 250,000 may think it's the greatest song ever written. But he's not going to rewrite it for any of those millions, right? Or not rewrite it. You know what I mean? He's not going to change the lyrics for the 10,000 fans who think it would have been better if he said this, right? So, anyway, this is just to make sure people can at least enjoy the game as it's designed, and they can decide whether they like it or not once they've been able to enjoy the game. So, or at least try the game. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful Super Bowl weekend. Good day.